This week and next, Keith Mitchell, aka Shipwright Skills on Instagram, is in the boathouse working on Arabella's main mast. And in order to get such a skilled set of hands, this episode is sponsored by Ecoflow.
So you're going to see a little bit of a commercial in the next couple of videos for some batteries, and bear with us because one, they've been really handy to have in the boat, but two, what we've got for these integrations are covering having Keith come down and work on the main mast and the spars, which is going to be a huge help, and we wouldn't be able to afford it without the help of these batteries. So bear with us, but these are pretty cool.
Last week, the strip-built housetop came together, and while the main mast gets worked on today, Steve and mostly KP moved forward on the finish coats for the interior side. For a few years, the spruce from a tree that Steve's great-grandfather planted in the front yard has been drying out and awaiting its use as the material for the main mast. And that day has finally come.
So what do you need my help with?
It's a maybe. Let's run this one out. You can help Aiden get those put on the sawhorses.
Whoa, coming down.
I think your lunch delivery is here.
Sticky. What? Looks like spruce. Oh. Nice. Cool. I made a English muffin. Hi guys.
How we doing?
This is not working. I dropped a nut.
Uh-oh. You gonna find it? Or are you gonna give up on it and go get another one?
Yeah, I'm getting a new one.
Okay. What you doing?
I'm fixing the exhaust.
Will it start? It's always a question, will it start?
I'm gonna need your protection, right?
Coming up next, Keith gets to work on this spruce, but first a few minutes about the sponsor for today's video and their Black Friday sale that you might be interested in.
So we've been using these batteries for a little while, and Ecoflow is doing a Black Friday sale, so November 11th to the 28th, including Cyber Monday. You get a solar generator for free when you spend $6,000 or more US only. You can get a Delta Mini for free when you spend $5,000 or more US and Canada. And you can get a River Mini, which is this guy, free when you spend $3,000 or more. And some of their stuff is up to 50% off. So pretty big savings for your holiday shopping because tis the season. So we've been using the River here and the Delta Mini for a while. The Delta Mini is pretty much living on the workbench and down here in the boat. We've got it running the lights right now, and we hook it up to the vacuum cleaner and some other things in here. So it has the inverter on there, so we can run the 110. And we can vacuum. It has plenty of power to run the Festool vac, and it runs DC directly to the lights. And the River here has been really handy traveling around. So we can put that in a bag and take it with us, can move it around the shop. And between these two, they've been pretty handy. The Delta Mini, we used it this summer to test the refrigerator, and it ran the Seafrost for over 24 hours in the middle of the summer with the fridge and freezer with barely anything in it, which is the most load that a fridge and freezer can really be taken when it's almost empty. So it was a great test for that and trying to figure out how big the battery bank is. And yeah, they've been super handy little rigs. You can charge them quick off the wall. You can plug them into solar panels. And they've got their 12 volt, their USB-Cs, cigarette plug, just about anything you could need.
We have pretty heavy charging needs here with all of the portable tools that we use, and I wanted to share a little hack that we've got. Found an old ladder, zip tied on. You've probably seen this sitting in the background, but I can't stress how handy this is. Zip tied these on here, labeled all of the various cords so that that's not lost, and then we don't have to cover a workbench with this. And we can just bring it to an outlet, or we tend to use the Ecoflow for this because you can just travel right along with. So we can plug directly into the back, or we can put a few of them into a power strip if we got to find something on the wall. But we've actually found that the back of this has plenty of plugs too. Little tip.
Stuff, but I think we'll end up wasting it out of this middle section anyway where the heart is. So we're working on Arabella's main mast. It is 41 foot 11 inches when it's done. It'll be 7 inches at the base, and it tapers to around 2 inches at the top. We're taking it out of a Norway spruce tree that Steve felled that his great-grandfather planted many years ago in the yard here. They were able to take it down, and I think it's a pretty good use for an heirloom tree, personally. With that said, it has many flaws. So we won't be building a hollow bird's mouth spar like you sometimes see. We started with, I think they were 2.5-inch rough cut slabs of the spruce that Steve had put up years ago. So it's very, very dry. It's been under cover, seasoned well. There are little checks and things that we'll deal with, fill with epoxy as needed. We milled our 2.5-inch stock down to 2. It's the thickness planer. It's really cool. It's a piece of history, you know? It's not every day you get to work with old tools like that. I enjoy it. They can be a challenge, you know. A brand new, out of the box, sparkling, shiny planer is a sight to behold. They work really well. They cost a ton of money, and you better keep them indoors. This one lives in the outdoors. It runs on a big old engine. That planer got us down to 2.25-ish, and then we went to the little gentleman's planer downstairs, which takes off just a little bit at a time, not nearly as much as the big one, but it also leaves a really nice cut. So having the 2 is really cool.
The finished 41-foot mast will be made from 4 2-inch lifts, scarfed to length, and glued together to make an 8x8 blank. Next week, you'll see that blank carved down to its final round shape.
It'll balance if we just kind of shove it up.
The mast crew brought the spruce inside to the spar bench, while Steve and KP removed the plywood that acted as the mold for the housetop glue-up. After getting the final markings for the edges and openings, KP trimmed up with a circular and handsaw.
Now we don't have the overhangage like we used to. And landed.
The dry fit passed inspection, so KP soldiered on with sanding, adding fairing compound and more coats of the epoxy-based marine paint.
We're using a 12-to-1 scarf. What you're trying to do is to make a continuous long grain from piece to piece without much of a transition. The reason we're using such a long scarf on the spar is to give it a uniform flex. So if you just glue these two pieces end to end, this one's gonna flex how it flexes, and this one's gonna flex how it flexes, and they're gonna do that, right? But if you have this big long scarf that's, 24 inches long, they behave as one piece, and that's really important with a spar because the mast is being held under tension, but every tack, every breath of wind, it's flexing a little bit to and fro. So you kind of stretch the scarf out. If I was scarfing like plywood for the deck, I might use a 4-to-1 or a 6-to-1 scarf, which means for every inch of rise, there's 12 inches of run. So 2 inches thick, 12-to-1 scarf, 24 inches long. To get our perfect scarf, what we ultimately want to end up with is basically like a perfect plane between the two pieces. In order to get the perfect plane, you got to sort of think about it. You can't just sort of cut it with a bandsaw and glue them together. That wouldn't work. They wouldn't be nice and in plane. So you could do it all with a hand plane if you wanted to, or a spoke shave, or a draw knife, or any tool in the shop that'll cut wood. But we want to do it quickly and efficiently and, not wear ourselves out too bad. So the first thing we did was got the little chainsaw out and just took a whole bunch of wood out of the way, just to get it out of the way so we didn't have to work with it later. We could have stood them on edge and passed them through the bandsaw, but the chainsaw was quicker and saved us having to pick the pieces up and lug them around and all that stuff. Next, we hit it with the big power planer, which is kind of nice. I've got a long power planer that sort of floats over defects and things like that. So hit it with the power planer a whole bunch, and being careful of this feather edge, it pretty much tapers to 0 inches thick at the very, very ends of the scarf. So we want to make sure not to explode those with the power planer. So I'll get to maybe an 1/8 or a 1/16 at the end of the feather end scarf, and I'll stop. Then I'll get the belt sander out, and I'll take the belt sander to what I just power planed, which is fairly smooth, but the belt sander does a little more precise job. And then with the belt sander, I know it's not going to rip the wood up. It's going to smooth it off. So I take the belt sander to the very tip, and I get the tip how I like it. I draw a line on it with a pencil, so I know that I'm at 0 with my pencil line. Next, I get out the jointer plane, which is almost as long as the scarf. Actually, I think it is as long as the scarf. It works, 1, as a really good straight edge, and 2, it bridges any imperfections left by the power plane or the belt sander. So I will hit it with the big jointer plane until I think that it's nice and true. I can see, using the jointer plane as a straight edge, see that it's flat. Once I'm sure it's nice and flat, then I want to tooth it to give it a surface to grip to. It's the same thing with paint. You wouldn't want to paint your car's windshield. You could scrape it right off with your paint scraper or your snow scraper or something. But if you painted the floor of this shop, you wouldn't be able to scrape the paint off because it has so much tooth. So in order to tooth it, we used a special toothing plane that Steve has, which gives it nice texture for the glue to get into.
Oh, these guys. Okay.
The next piece left 4 pieces instead of 3, so there'll be 2. So right now I'm just trying to strike a center line on this so that way when we go to glue up there won't be any questions as to if this is straight or not. So we'll do that. Any variation on the edges we can kind of ignore. So our little skill saw cuts that wander and things like that we're not so worried about. We're going to go off the center and we'll do that by using a string to locate the center. You can use just a spun piece of 3-strand, but in my experience, I've discovered that it just keeps getting looser and looser and looser while you're playing this game. So I go for the strongest mason line I can find for this task. We're just playing the find the center line game right now, which is going pretty well. Got a diligent doctor on the other end of the line, so he's used to accuracy, hopefully. Is this one funny now? That's pretty good. I like it. So let's throw clamps on this so it can't...
4 clamps?
Yeah, and pretty tight, because we're going to actually move the entire stave closer to the house on that end. We kind of drifted away from the wall. So if we can pinch that, we isolate the scarf, we know exactly where we like it. We'll double check it, but seems like that's the way to do it. You like my ruler? I made that myself. That's a exercise in patience, making your own rulers. When you put it with the real thing that you pay money for at the store, it's identical. Very lightly thickened, but I could have done just clear stuff smashed on there. Just to kind of wet the surface out. Very absorbent wood, so we'll have no trouble soaking this right in. That's better. If it's kind of thick, then it will allow us to have a little bit of thickness to our glue joint. We don't want to squeeze it so hard that all the glue comes out. So we want to have the right consistency, not too thick, not too thin. And then I use a notch trowel, which I'll go big notches. Spread it around, and that'll let me know that I have enough rather than using a small stick. I can kind of meter it out with the notch trowel. Do that one. Like that. Make sure it's all over the place. A little extra in that there big pitch pocket. This. Put some on there. Whoops. Enough glue where we need it, not any extra. Let's flip this bad boy up. Here we go. So somewhere there's that driver with the tip on it. Yeah, this one. So let's throw a clamp on the bench here. And then we can start clamping this at the same time.
Right,
exactly. Yep, so let's grab a couple more clamps. We'll get 8 clamps on this. I got another one here. Whoa. You're there. Yep. Down a little squeeze. Woo! Now. This is lovely.
With the first of the lifts glued up, the crew moved on to finishing the scarfs for the remaining 3. And then Aaron paid a visit with a project that he finished using some maple and ash that he picked up from the piles here a while back.
Kind of geometrically, the neck was hard to get because it's not symmetrical. It's all got to be like the angle in relation to the rim has to be really precise.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the neck was, I just spent so long on it and was so careful. It's the only part that I didn't have to do twice, really. There were several iterations of the rim and the head, but
Okay.
I think it's very much a prototype. It kind of sounds okay and it's playable, but I would build the next one better, I think. The first time I've played in front of other people and then also on camera and mic'd at the same time. It's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Well, how about that, Ann?
How about that?
When Bob Emster came and took all the lumber for the tender, I was hesitant to send him with spruce because I didn't quite know what we had and how it would shake out. But we've milled up the spruce for the mainmast, the bowsprit, and the booms. The gaffs are going to come from Victoria's spars. So that means that the rest of the spruce is extra, and we need to get some out to Bob so that he can use it for the spars for the tender. So before we go and pay a bunch of shipping, we were hoping that maybe one of you is headed from around Granby, Massachusetts to around Eureka, Illinois, where Bob is, sometime for the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. And we need to send basically 2 10-foot long 2x4s. So shorter than these and about this size. So we can put them in or on just about any vehicle. It doesn't need to be a truck or a big rack. It's not a lot of lumber. It's just a couple boards to make a couple small spars. So if you are available to transport these from here in Granby over to Bob in Eureka, Illinois in the next, say, couple months, give us a holler, shoot us an email, let us know, and we'll see if we can get it arranged, and you'll get to see both shops, which should be fun. So thanks again for following and supporting. We could not be producing these weekly videos without your support through Patreon and contributions and t-shirt sales and all that fun jazz. And we will see you here every Friday. Next week we'll make some more progress on this mast.